you geeks! Last week, I and a few thousand fans made it to Dragonsteel 2022, where Brando revealed 3 Szeth interludes from Stormlight 5, thereby providing the final piece to my ongoing theory that Szeth's arc riffs off of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, a musical both Brando and I love.
I find most musicals don't have one. And I find that Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals often have several. And Joseph, it's like the whole soundtrack.
Today, I'll explain how Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat has been a surprising treasure trove of memes for Szeth's arc so far. I predict that these two stories will continue to have a working relationship. Thus, from Joseph, I can predict what plot points we will see in future books, Book 5 specifically, starting with a work of art. For this theory began when I was listening to Joseph's Coat on a Friday night because I am so cool, and came across this lyric.
I look handsome, I look smart, I am a walking work of art.
And it clicked, for I knew I had heard another character described in exactly the same way. You are a work of art, Szeth-son-son-vallano, a god. Who are you? Szeth repeated. An admirer of the arts. Do not call me by my father's name, Szeth said. He should not be sullied by association with me. From this point, more and more things began to line up for me. Szeth had a very peculiar relationship with his father, and we know that Joseph was his father's favorite son.
Through young Joseph, Jacob lived his youth again, loved him, praised him.
Though it's the Cosmere, so who doesn't have a strained relationship with their father? On top of that, it is widely believed that Szeth in some way predicted the future back in Shinovar. Long ago, my people rejected my warnings, Szeth said. They did not believe me when I said the enemy would soon return. They cast me out, deemed me truthless. Just as Joseph could see the future.
Your 11 sheaves of corn all turned and bowed to mine,
which caused both of them to be expelled from their homelands as a slave. You gave him to me for practically nothing. He was truthless, Thrush said, shrugging. He wasn't worth anything at all. You forced me to take something in trade, though to confess, I had to throw your payment into a river. I could not take money for a truthless.
Could you use a slave, you hairy bunch of Ishmaelites?
These men were, of course, strangely literate slaves.
Going cheap, and he reads and writes.
He took the king's hand, dipping it in the man's own blood, then used it to scrawl on the wood. Brother, you must find the most important words a man can say. Of course, there are differences. Brando seems to have uprooted the whole attempted seduction plot and stuffed it into Warbreaker.
I don't believe in free love!
Instead, Sando got Szeth into prison by way of him killing Gavilar and a significant other number of nobles. Either way, both Szeth and Joseph ended up in prison and in despair.
Darken my daytime and torture my night.
For Szeth, his inner monologue is more concerned with those he had killed. The screams from the shadows seemed dim, less pressing. Then he immediately felt guilty. He had left tears, blood, and terror in his wake, like a personal seal. He had destroyed monarchies, families, innocent and guilty alike. He could not be happy. He was only a tool of retribution, not redemption. Moreover, the Shin parallel the biblical Israelites in that they are the people who stayed in the land given to them by their deity.
And in the promised land it's gonna be so grand.
And they, like Joseph's brothers, are hesitant to leave it, even when tragedy strikes.
Now the fields are dead and bare, no joie de vivre anywhere.
Your father was barely a man when I found him, Ishar said. The Shin had accepted the unmade, tried to make gods of them. I saved them, and your father did give me this blade. He thanked me for letting him die. I truly do question how trustworthy Ishar is in this description. At this point, he is insisting that he is Honor's champion and that Dalinar is Odium's champion, though we already have art of Cal and Szeth in Shinovar, where the influence of the unmade seems apparent. Thus, I think it is safe to say that if the Shin weren't having a hard time immediately after Szeth left, they are certainly having a hard time now. We'll find out soon enough, though. This could be nothing more sinister than falling under the Ghost Bloods, Escadron that is a French organization.
I'm French! Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you silly king?
But I doubt it. The flashbacks begin with Szeth and the family stone, which is not quite what I was expecting, but unsurprisingly, colors are very important in Shinovar. I now realize that we actually saw this back in The Way of Kings. Other Shin she'd seen had worn basic brown robes or other workers' clothing. At the front of this group, however, was a man in what must be Shin finery, a bright, multicolored cloak that completely enveloped him, tied closed at the front. But Szeth, unlike Risen, a hairy trader, gives us a peek at what it means to be middle class in the Shin's secretive culture. His sister wore orange as her splash, the vivid piece of colorful clothing that marked their station, a bright orange apron in her case, across a gray dress and a vibrant white undergown that poked through to cover the forearms and collar. We also see firsthand Szeth and his family being shepherds in a mountain valley of Shinovar, which I now appreciate means that Szeth is this series' wool-headed sheep herder. It also connects to why a wool-headed sheep herder is on the fantasy trope bingo board to begin with. Sheep herding was the profession of many of the heroes of the Old Testament. Heroes like Joseph.
Jacob and sons spend all of their days in the fields with sheep.
Thankfully, Sanderson steers clear of direct allegory. For one thing, none of our heroes are carpenters.
Nothing to do but frown. Rainy days and Mondays always get me down.
I don't even want Szeth's arc to be directly analogous to Joseph's story. Thus, if at any time the Shin assault a goat, I will be very put out.
Soon the wretched creature was no more.
Back to the preview chapters, we see that the farmer, he who adds, wears many colors over simple farmer's garb. The farmer was dressed in his robes. He wouldn't work in those, but wore them over his traditional farming clothes, which would be soiled from this day's activity. The dirty clothing was a symbol, but so were the colors he wore. In this case, a violet outer robe and an inner sky blue one of filmier material. Not exactly a technicolor coat, but not unlike what Joseph wore in Cana.
This is why it caught the eye.
A king would stop and stare.
Under his coat, Joseph wears white. It certainly has struck me that if Joseph wears anything, he is wearing white in the 1999 film and thereby most adaptations of this musical. Joseph wears white. Since Szeth was not born into a colorful station in Shinovar, the question arises, when will Szeth wear many colors? One possibility is that Szeth will don many colors when his family is chosen to bear the honor blades. But I doubt it. In Shinovar, colors are associated with honor, or at least their social conception of honor. Thus, bearing a weapon is seen as dishonorable. Szeth's childhood had been a simple time before his family had been given to the honor blades, before his gentle father had been taught to kill, to subtract. His father was still alive, in Shinovar, bearer of a different sword, a different burden. Accepting the premise that his family was given to the blades in punishment, I think that the preview chapters reveal what Szeth's family did to merit such a sentence. They moved the second stone, and they lied about it. Szeth said, "No, we can move it." All three of them relaxed, as he said did, and he felt a sudden, shameful resentment. His father said he couldn't choose, but they all three clearly wanted a specific decision. He'd made it, he felt, not because it was right, but because they wanted it. But how could all three of them want it if it wasn't right? Maybe Szeth was just broken in some way, that he couldn't see what they did. Maybe it was all right to be lax about all of this. Moving the stone and lying about it may be the fault of his family, from which they must repent, just as Joseph's brothers had to repent of the whole selling him into slavery and lying about it thing.
A tragic but inspiring tale.
Of course, it's not a direct allegory. That's why I love Sanderson's works. So I think he'll skip the whole donning the colors early and focus on the end, where the trial and truth waits for our boys. With Shinovar currently in a bad spot, they had the option to do as Joseph's brothers did and seek help from pagan lands.
So they finally decided to go. Here we go! Off to Egypt to see Brother Joe.
But we know the Shin have not done this. Rather, Szeth is coming to them, not as a slave, but as a servant of the king, Dalinar.
Joseph, Pharaoh's number 2.
Though Szeth is not exactly Dalinar's trusted lieutenant, he is still just doing remarkably well for an assassin who killed Dalinar's brother and tried to kill Dalinar himself.
Anyone from anywhere can make it if they get a lucky break.
My reading buddy thinks that Dalinar could relate more to Joseph's prison guards, with whom Joseph had an in.
For even though he is in with the gods, a lifetime in prison seems quite on the cards.
Thus, Ishar could relate more to Pharaoh, needing not just Kaladin's help, but Szeth's as well.
That's this Joseph man. I need him to help me if he can.
Szeth helping restore Ishar may put him in a position to judge his family for the wrong that they committed in being lax in their moral values. In the Bible, Joseph laid the blame on Benjamin, who was wholly innocent of his brother's fault.
Benjamin is an innocent man.
Because, as established above, Benjamin wasn't born when Joseph was sold into slavery. Though I think we will definitely see a moral quandary about an innocent taking the blame for the guilty. But I'm on the fence about if a cup will be involved.
Stop! You robbers, your little numbers up. One of you has stolen my precious golden cup.
If it is, we can check another box off of our fantasy bingo card, as a cup was stolen from Beowulf's dragon and Bilbo stole a cup from Smaug, though that didn't make it into the film. Anywho, Joseph and Szeth were destined to face questions of justice and mercy. Joseph chose mercy.
That Joseph who you thought was dead, your brother is me.
And I'm betting Szeth will do likewise, and thereby swear his fourth ideal and earn his plate. Skybreaker plate has been revealed to be silvery with purple accents. Not exactly a multicolored cloak, but I can still hope because we've seen a high level of investiture turn white into a robe of many colors before. He wore white. Ciri hadn't expected that. Something about his biochroma made the pure white split as she'd seen before, breaking up like light passed through a prism. His clothing seemed to stretch, forming a robe shaped rainbow in a colorful aura around him. So you know, a rabid fangirl can dream. In the end, I guess all I can say is go, 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 Szeth. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this new format. I've already learned so much and hope to keep improving my content. Of course, like, share, and subscribe if you would like to see more. Thank you!